Anyone can call themselves a Christian. Anyone can attend church, sing the worship songs, share Bible verses on social media, and wear the label without it costing them anything at all. But genuine faith has always been defined not by what a person claims, but by what they are willing to give up. The history of Christianity is not a history of comfortable people. It is a history of people who encountered the living God and found that nothing else was worth holding on to by comparison. In this video, we will reveal 5 sacrifices that only true Christians make and that fake Christians consistently refuse. These are not about earning salvation. They are about what genuine faith actually looks like when it leaves Sunday morning and enters real life. Tell us in the comments what country you are watching from. And let's get into it. The first and most constant sacrifice of genuine faith is the sacrifice of personal comfort. Every true Christian reaches moments where obedience to God directly conflicts with what is easiest, most convenient or most immediately satisfying, and in those moments they choose obedience anyway. It might be having an honest conversation they have been avoiding for months. It might be serving in a capacity that drains them when they would rather rest. It might be maintaining a standard that isolates them socially or costs them professionally. Whatever form it takes, the pattern is consistent. Genuine faith regularly asks its followers to do the harder thing, and genuine followers regularly say yes. Fake Christians, by contrast, have developed a remarkable ability to find a theological reason why God's will always happens to align perfectly with whatever is most comfortable for them at any given moment. Jesus never presented following him as a path to comfort. In Matthew 16:24, he described it as taking up a cross, an instrument of death, carried daily, not occasionally, not when the mood strikes, but every single day. The sacrifice of comfort is not a dramatic one-time event. It is the accumulated weight of thousands of small daily choices to do what is right rather than what is easy. And it is precisely because it is so ordinary and so constant that it is such a reliable indicator of genuine faith. A person whose faith has never required them to choose obedience over comfort has not yet been tested in the way Jesus described. But the second sacrifice is even more socially costly, and in today's culture, it may be the most revealing of all. There has never been a moment in recent history when holding to biblical convictions has been more socially expensive than it is right now. Genuine Christians who believe what Scripture teaches about human identity, sexuality, marriage, and the exclusivity of salvation through Christ alone are increasingly finding that those convictions cost them friendships, professional opportunities, social media followers, and cultural acceptance. And the true Christian makes that sacrifice anyway, not with aggression or self-righteousness, but with clarity and genuine love. They do not abandon what the Bible teaches in order to be liked. They do not soften inconvenient truths to protect their reputation. They speak what is true, bear the consequences, and trust God with the outcome. Fake Christians, by contrast, have become extraordinarily skilled at theological flexibility, finding ways to reinterpret Scripture that happen to align perfectly with whatever the surrounding culture currently approves of. They celebrate when following Jesus is popular and quietly distance themselves from biblical convictions when it becomes costly. But Romans 1:16 leaves no room for this kind of conditional faith. Paul declared that he was not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God that brings salvation. Shame about the gospel is not a personality trait. It is a faith problem. And a faith that disappears when it becomes unpopular was never genuinely rooted in the first place. The third sacrifice cuts even closer to home because it involves the people a Christian loves most. One of the most painful and least discussed sacrifices of genuine faith is the sacrifice of relationships that pull a person away from God. True Christians reach points where they must create distance from friendships, romantic relationships, or even family dynamics that are consistently moving them away from obedience, integrity, and genuine spiritual growth. This is not about cutting people off with harshness or superiority. It is about the honest recognition that some relationships, however beloved, are incompatible with following Jesus faithfully. And making that choice, when it means real loneliness and real grief, is one of the most costly things genuine faith asks of a person. Fake Christians avoid this sacrifice entirely because it is too painful, too socially disruptive, and too difficult to explain. They maintain every relationship regardless of its spiritual cost, convince themselves that their influence will eventually change the people around them, and gradually find that the people around them have changed them instead. Jesus addressed this directly in Matthew 10:37. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. This is not a call to abandon family. It is a recognition that genuine loyalty to God will sometimes create genuine tension with the people we love most. And the willingness to navigate that tension faithfully rather than avoid it entirely is one of the marks of true faith. And the fourth sacrifice reveals something about how a true Christian relates to money that is almost countercultural in every direction. Genuine generosity, the kind the Bible describes, is sacrificial by definition. It is not giving from surplus. It is not donating what you were not going to use anyway. It is giving in a way that actually affects your own financial position, your own security, and your own plans. True Christians practice this kind of generosity because they have genuinely internalized the truth that everything they have belongs to God, and that storing up treasure on earth is a poor investment compared to the eternal return of kingdom generosity. The widow Jesus praised in Mark 12:43-44 did not give impressively by the world's standards. She gave 2 small coins, but Jesus said she gave more than all the wealthy donors combined, because she gave out of her poverty while they gave out of their surplus. Fake Christians give generously when it costs them nothing, when the amount is small enough to be painless, when the giving is public enough to generate social approval, or when a financial return is promised in exchange. But genuine sacrificial generosity, the kind that requires trust, that creates real financial pressure and that nobody may ever know about, is almost entirely absent from their practice. 2 Corinthians 9:7 describes the standard clearly, not reluctantly or under compulsion, but cheerfully and freely. Cheerful generosity that is also genuinely sacrificial is one of the most powerful testimonies to the reality of faith in a world that treats financial security as the highest value. And the fifth and final sacrifice on our list is the one that all the others ultimately flow from. Every other sacrifice on this list is made possible by this one, the sacrifice of personal will, the willingness to say to God, not what I want, but what you want, and mean it, not just as a religious phrase, but as a genuine daily surrender of agenda, preference, timeline, and outcome. This is the sacrifice that Jesus modeled in Gethsemane in Matthew 26:39. Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. Jesus had a preference. He expressed it honestly, and then he surrendered it entirely to the Father. That is not passive resignation. It is the most active and costly form of trust that exists. It requires believing that God's plan is better than your own, even when everything in you is screaming otherwise. Fake Christians pray for God's will in theory, while spending their actual energy pursuing their own agenda and asking God to bless it. True Christians genuinely submit their plans, their relationships, their careers, and their futures to a God whose ways are higher than their ways and whose timing rarely matches their preference. Isaiah 55, 8-9 makes this gap explicit. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. The sacrifice of personal will is not a one-time decision. It is renewed every morning, in every disappointment, in every unanswered prayer, and in every moment when God's plan looks nothing like what you hoped for. And the true Christian makes that sacrifice anyway, not because it is easy, but because they have learned that God can be trusted with everything they surrender to Him. These 5 sacrifices are not the cause of salvation, they are the evidence of it. A faith that has never cost you anything may not be the faith that Jesus described, but a faith that is genuinely rooted in the gospel will produce people who are willing to give up comfort, reputation, relationships, financial security, and personal will, not to earn God's approval, but because they already have it. Which of these 5 sacrifices challenged you the most today? Comment below and tell us what country you are watching from. If this video was valuable to you, please like it, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. We have more powerful and honest content coming, and you do not want to miss what is next. May God give you the courage to make every sacrifice that genuine faith requires.